Welcome everybody to another episode of the Now Podcast. I'm your host, Nifty. Joining me today is a legend from the Ethereum space, which, as you all may have noticed, as this comes out, we're featuring a few folks from Ethereum, and I wonder why that is. Hopefully, you guys have figured it out by now, or the news is dropped by the time this podcast is released. But we're going cross chain, yay! So joining me is Degentraland, again, a big figure in the Ethereum space. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Nifty. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. So let's get into your background a bit. That's kind of where I like to start these things. I guess before you were into Web3 and crypto, like what's your background? What were you doing in Web2, so to speak?
Yeah, so started my career after college at Goldman Sachs. So I was banking there for 2 years on a team called Liability Management. The team helps companies refinance and manage their outstanding debt portfolios. Very technical role. After about 2 years, I transitioned to a large entertainment company where I currently sit on the strategy team, mostly focused on NFTs and the metaverse. And about 2 years ago, I got into the space via Decentralized Metaverses. And it was very obvious to me after spending some time there how related the metaverse subject is to NFTs and DAOs. They all sit under the same umbrella of decentralization.
Sure.
Then I started digging in the rabbit hole and got very involved in the NFT space and have been fairly active on Twitter for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I could see that you've built quite a bit of a following. So bravo to you. I got into the space thinking I would build a bit of a following for myself. I'd like to think I'm funny. I don't know. I don't know if my podcast viewers agree, but yeah, that was kind of my hope. It's not easy for people who have similar goals. I know it's not easy to build a following. There is kind of a grind for like content and that kind of thing. How did you find your experience with being able to get up to, I think you're about 55K now, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, thanks. Listen, it's not easy.
Yeah,
Constant content generation.
Mhm.
You need to, in my opinion, add some sort of value,
Yep.
target a specific niche that hopefully is untouched. And for the rest of the people on Twitter who are just trying to find the best people to follow, there's a lot of bullshit that you have to wade through.
Yeah.
A lot of toxic positivity, a lot of absolute statements about the market, and a lot of people fighting other projects without proper insights. I've tweeted a good amount about the right people that you should be following. To me, curating your timeline is one of the more important things to do in the space. Who
Yeah.
you follow is going to affect your decision making. So you have to be very, very methodical about how you do that.
Absolutely. I mean, which in turn affects your bottom line, right? I think like, I had buddies who minted Boryoku dragons, and it really just fell on like what popped up on their timeline. And so you really can miss a lot. You can miss a lot of learning as well. So I totally agree. Curating your timeline is very important. When you got into the space, how did you find building your own timeline?
Yeah, so lucky enough, I had some friends who were already involved in the space.
Very good.
So I knew the right ones to follow ahead of time. Still months in, I would figure out that someone I had been following quite religiously was not the person they turned out to be.
Yeah, that's tough.
Using their followers as exit liquidity or just simply not knowledgeable about the space. I think something that is safe to do, don't look at follower counts, rather look at the people that you know and trust and who they're following. And through network effects, you should build a good timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's solid advice. So I want to kind of go back to your experience outside of Web3. You said you worked for an entertainment company. Is that right?
Yeah.
In what capacity? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I run a small team of analysts on the strategy team,
I see.
mostly focused on emerging technologies, which really just means NFTs and the metaverse at this
That's
point.
awesome.
And given my background from Goldman, I'm able to take specific insights about financial markets and deep understanding of trading in general and apply that over to the NFT space. But listen, there are so many synergies at this point between traditional Web2 entertainment companies and Web3. I know personally a lot of unannounced partnerships and acquisitions that are going to be taking place in the near future.
Exciting.
And I think this is telling of what is to come. Market obviously is down right now, and the market is going to be linked to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. But eventually those are going to recover, and Web3 will as well. And we're going to continue to see venture funding enter the space. We're in kind of a lull right now, but in the long term, if you're here for the right reasons, it's nothing to worry about.
Let's go. Let's go. A little sign of hope. I like that. So I think it's kind of interesting. So you were saying you were kind of working, or I guess studying metaverses outside of the NFT space. In my mind, I've always kind of tied them together. So when you say metaverse, like, pre NFT, what are we talking?
Yeah. So the metaverse is an interesting subject, and I think most people who are familiar with the term metaverse think about it in the wrong way. So the metaverse doesn't need to be gamified. It doesn't need to be 3D. Common misconceptions. Right now, I would say everyone who uses an iPhone, everyone who's on Facebook or TikTok is already in the metaverse. The metaverse can be defined as the quasi-successor to the mobile internet. So it's really just an interconnected network of protocols, devices, infrastructure, payment rails, and blockchain technology in the future. And at its most simple level, you could think of the metaverse as a 3D extension of the internet, but it goes far beyond that. So there are two buckets. You have centralized metaverses and decentralized metaverses. To me, the way that all of this shakes out is that decentralized metaverses are going to be the winner, and decentralization exists on a scale, so it probably won't be fully decentralized. We'll probably see some sort of Web 2.5 model. But there are enough benefits and value propositions of decentralized metaverses that make me think, that convince me that they're here to stay. So those value propositions would be things like interoperability, scarcity. They exist in perpetuity. You have digital sovereignty, and then decentralized metaverses theoretically should align user incentives with producer incentives. And we can talk about any of those if you want.
A lot of that went over my head. I'm an NFT degen, not particularly the smartest person. I ape shit and then I lose money, and that's been the cycle so far. But I'd love if you can expand on some of that stuff. I don't know what point, but you pick one and go for it.
Yeah. So let's start with the idea of scarcity first. If you are familiar with Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox, these companies generate billions and billions of dollars every year off of in-game assets. So on Fortnite, you can buy skins, you can buy gliders, you can buy emotes. The problem with all of these, the problem with all of these products is that Epic Games retains the IP to all of them. More so, they can write a few more lines of code and then create millions of more of those same assets, which is going to undermine the value of them, right? So without scarcity, without assets existing on the blockchain, there can be no supply dynamics and therefore no open market economy, which is necessary for the metaverse to exist.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In terms of sovereignty or perpetual sovereignty, if Epic Games were to go bankrupt, or if Fortnite were to suddenly become unprofitable for them and they were to shut down their servers, then billions of dollars of assets would be lost.
Yeah.
Right? Theoretically, with decentralized metaverses, they can never shut down because they're run on nodes. And if suddenly people stop playing the game, you still have the rights to all of your assets. Some of them could have historical value, and we'll talk about interoperability. Theoretically, you should be able to take those assets into other metaverses moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of interoperability, for a true metaverse economy to exist, you can't have gated platforms. They can't be closed walls. So you can't take your skins from Fortnite and bring them into Roblox. Now, this shouldn't be a problem in the way that the dynamic is currently set up. But in the future, as soon as we start to integrate interoperability, I'm guessing metaverses that don't are going to be left behind. right? So if, the top 5 metaverses are all interoperable with each other and the 6th chooses to be gated, users have no incentive to play on that 6th one.
Right. No, that makes sense.
The problem with interoperability right now is that most metaverses use different file formats, and a lot of them are built on different chains. Some are on Ethereum, some are on Solana.
Right.
Right now, people are using bridging solutions like Portal by Wormhole. This isn't true interoperability, though. So if you're familiar with the Ethereum project Doodles, they lifted this technology called wrapped asset technology from CryptoKitties, where you essentially lock in one NFT to a smart contract and you get another one in return. So you can only hold one in your wallet at a given time. So if we apply this to metaverses, you could have an asset in Decentraland and then have the compatible asset in Sandbox, and you can only hold one in your wallet at the same time, but they are 2 separate assets.
Right.
So it's true interoperability. So for this to exist in the future, we're going to need common standards. So we're going to need things like metadata ontology, 2D, 3D file formats that work with different metaverses, things like that. And then finally, sorry to keep going on here.
No, this is so insightful. And again, by the way, I think I started off kind of like, whoa, what the fuck? And then you explaining this, I mean, it's all clicking. It makes sense. So I appreciate you diving deep.
Yeah, of course. So finally, in terms of aligned incentives, the problem with Web2 right now is that consumers are giving up more than they are receiving in return from Web2 platforms. So if you think about it from the perspective of Facebook or Apple or Google, we are giving up all of our data. We are having our privacy laws violated. And they are earning from our engagement, and we are giving up time and getting very little in return, right? So we get unlimited entertainment. We get to connect with people in ways that we didn't before. I believe those are just antiquated models at this point. They should be a given, and they will be in Web3. So the way that decentralized metaverses work is they align incentives between the consumer and the producer such that users who are spending time on the platform and helping grow the brand, either directly or indirectly, can actually earn from their time and their engagement. This could take the form of things like play-to-earn games. NFTs should appreciate in value as the metaverse does. And we are going to see the amount of money that consumers get from the actual infrastructure start to increase. So if you look at Roblox, for instance, they have a 70-30 split with their developers where they keep 70% of the profits. I believe as decentralized metaverses proliferate, we're going to start to see these breakdowns work more in the consumer's favor.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. No, and I think that's exciting. I don't actually know of any current metaverses, whether they be on the same chain or not, that are interoperable. Do you know of any that are up and running right now?
Listen, there are a lot of solutions that are working towards interoperability. Right now, Other Side, Yuga Labs Metaverse, is trying to promote the narrative of a common standard. So I think that's going to be interoperable in the future, though it will require future metaverses to be built on their standard.
I see.
And different metaverses require different things, and they all have their own goals. But in the future, much like I think we're going to see most of cryptocurrencies go to 0 and then call it 5 or 10, which all of the metaverses are built on, all of the payment platforms are using. I think the same thing is going to happen with these standards.
Yeah, no, that's exciting too. I think like anybody here in this space right now, we're watching this building period, but folks who are going to be entering in the next couple of years and folks who've stuck through it, like it'll be a very exciting time. It's like you said, I think all of this is coming. Some of it's already being built. And so it's just kind of a waiting game right now as far as consumers like myself. But it's exciting. And then obviously whenever it does become like cross-chain as well, that'd be incredible.
Yeah, the cross-chain stuff, we'll see how that plays out. I also think we are in inning 2 or 3 of a 9-inning ball game when it comes to the metaverse. Most of the metaverse platforms that exist right now probably won't see much adoption in the future.
Yeah.
I think the other side, Yuga Labs Metaverse, has the best chance of doing that. They have a strong consumer base that is committed to the brand. So they have, call it 30 to 50,000 people championing for them. They have a ton of funding. So they raised $200 million from the man sale, $400 million or $450 million from A16Z in their capital raise, and then call it $100 million in secondary sales. Now, listen, when you compare that to established centralized metaverse companies like Epic Games and Roblox, which are doing billions and billions in revenue every year, Epic Games is valued at like $30 billion. Roblox is probably a little higher than that. It's incomparable.
Right. For now.
Yes, for now. The value propositions of Yuga, though, the fact that they are Web3 native, integrating blockchain, and then also allowing consumers to earn through their engagement, it's a no-brainer to me. Whether these metaverses are the ones that succeed or Epic Games and Roblox, Microsoft, Activision, etc., start to integrate Web3 technology, it's the technology is here to stay. I remember I was on a Spaces with these two guys, OSF and Mando. They're part of Rug Radio, really smart guys.
Oh, cool.
One of them was saying, one of them was saying that the best investments in metaverse platforms and play-to-earn games are actually PFPs right now. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, it's tough to know which platforms are going to succeed. But at this point, most PFPs have a ton of runway. They have really strong communities to them. As we start to see them integrate avatars, 3D avatars, characters in play-to-earn games, I believe that those are going to be the winners long term.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's exciting. What do you think about my timeline? 2 years? Does 2 years seem kind of early?
In terms of what? The metaverse?
I guess metaverse, adoption, interoperability. When are we going to see it be more than, I guess, what we're seeing currently?
Again, I think we're already in the metaverse, and I think mass adoption has already happened. If we're talking specifically decentralized metaverses,
yes.
Frankly, it could never happen. The timeline I usually give for play-to-earn games is probably in the next 5 to 10 years to actually see mass adoption. I mean, there are a ton of things that are precluding mass adoption from taking place, right? So the first and the biggest is ease of accessibility. Not only does blockchain have a high learning curve, but if you think about the steps that are necessary for someone to purchase an NFT, it's insanely inconvenient. So you have to connect your bank account to a centralized exchange like Coinbase, wait 3 to 5 days for the funds to transfer, buy Ethereum or Solana, transfer that into your MetaMask or Phantom wallet, connect that wallet to OpenSea, and then purchase your NFT, right? The steps that are necessary. You look at the crypto market, which has about 100 times the investors as the NFT market has. Part of that is because you can have a one-click stop and shop experience, right? You literally just go on Coinbase and click purchase, market order. It's there. The process needs to be streamlined for NFTs for us to see mass adoption. And we are seeing it. We're seeing a lot of L2 solutions start to integrate credit card and USD purchases. But ease of accessibility is a serious problem. And you look at the Web2 market, right? Like, there are billion-dollar companies that have been founded solely with the goal of converting users to purchase. So a stat that I like to mention, about 70% of shopping carts are abandoned before purchase. If you think about that in terms of NFTs, it's another thing that precludes us from seeing mass adoption. And then you have this narrative, of course, around NFTs and cryptos that's all a scam. And frankly, when they say there is no utility to NFTs, a lot of the times they're right. Like, we really haven't seen utility fleshed out in a way that's necessary. And I think a big part of that is people allocating tons of liquidity to projects that frankly don't deserve it, or projects like doodles like Artifact, which take a really long time to scale, right? Not only are they the ones pioneering the technology, but targeting synergistic partnerships and then actually finding product market fit takes a really long time.
Yeah.
Just some thoughts.
No, yeah, incredible thoughts. No, yeah, I think when you consider all that, there's these steps that need to happen, right? The foundations need to be kind of laid a little bit further. So, yeah, I think maybe I'm a little hopeful there with the 2 year timeline for some of this stuff, but no, I think 5 to 10 years is fair. That just means we're early as fuck. So, like, from what I'm gathering, so
Yeah, we are most certainly early. Sometimes I wonder if we're too early, especially as it relates to the metaverse and play to earn games. I really do think 99% of projects we see now are going to zero.
Sure, yeah.
And then the projects that will exist in the future, no one's really looking at. And if they are looking at them, the relative valuations of those compared to projects like NFT Worlds, for instance, when it was trading at a floor price of 17 or 18 Ethereum, it's just totally incongruent.
Yeah. No, I wonder about that too. I'm like, man, what is going to be tomorrow's big thing, and is it out already where I can buy a ton of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to think so as well. I'd like to think that there is some staying power for some of these projects that are just not getting the attention that they deserve. But hopefully that changes soon. I think people are slowly figuring out what kind of value they're trying to get from NFTs, and this whole craziness. And so I think eventually, once that kind of gets fleshed out a little bit better, we'll start to see value go where
Yeah.
it's deserved.
I mean, listen, I think a few things need to happen. First, we need to get rid of the word NFT for a number of reasons. First, people who are not involved in Web3 hear NFT and they just have this overt aversion to it.
Yeah.
And then second, the term NFT doesn't really do the technology justice. There are so many different types of NFTs. We need to get specific in terms of the different use cases and the utility that each NFT adds. The way that I see this shaking out in the near to midterm, I think use cases like ticketing, reputation score, gaming, for instance, hospitality, those are going to be the use cases that see mass adoption before anything like play to earn games do. So if we think about ticketing,
that's a big one. Yeah, I was thinking about that we were like talking about it, with some buddies. I was like, man, this makes sense. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, the value propositions of NFTs in terms of tickets, it makes a ton of sense, right? You have token gated access to things.
Right.
10% of American consumers have bought fake tickets. If it exists on the blockchain, you have verification of authenticity.
Right.
Tickets can also become collectibles. So if you look at the music market right now, a ton of sales from musicians come not just from their music, but from their personal brands. So things like merchandise. Tickets, if they exist on the blockchain, people already collect physical tickets and hang them up on their walls. Suddenly, if there's a secondary market for it, then we have a whole new use case for tickets of themselves.
Yeah.
And then finally, you can add utility to tickets in perpetuity. If an artist wants to reward their early adopters with 10% discounts to all of their future shows, they can do that, or they can have backstage passes. So tickets are going to be a huge one.
Agreed.
Hospitality also is going to be really big, just token gated access. So if you think of a company like Soho House, for instance, if they give out 5% of their memberships via NFTs, it's going to just be a new revenue stream for them. There is going to be a perfect price equilibrium, right, in the secondary market. So people are going to just pay exactly what they're willing to pay for it. And Soho House is going to be able to receive royalties in perpetuity. Maybe Soho House isn't the best example because they try to keep their clubs somewhat exclusive, but there are a ton of other membership programs that exist where they don't care who joins.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's interesting. I think like it'll be cool to see, outside of, I think right now, like you said, the term NFT can be a lot of things. Would you say most people are associating it with like the PFP animated cartoon kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, when non-Web3 natives hear NFTs, their
Yeah.
immediate thought is Bored Apes.
Yeah, right. Same,
When in
agreed. Yeah.
reality, in the future, cryptographic art is going to be maybe 5% of the market.
Mm.
If we think about cryptographic art without utilities, so just the standalone art as an NFT asset class, the collectibles market outside of NFTs is $40 billion. The gaming market is $200 billion. Video streaming is $600 billion. Like, this is going to be a very small percentage of what NFTs become.
Yeah.
And in the future, in the same way that there were internet companies in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and now every single company uses the internet, but there are no quote unquote internet companies.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same thing with blockchain and NFTs, where we have blockchain native companies right now. In the future, every single company is going to be integrating NFT technology into their business in one way or another.
Yeah.
So we're going to see mass adoption at some point. The question isn't whether we see it. The question is what form it will take.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I want to touch on something you said earlier. You were saying most of these cryptocurrencies are going to end up probably at zero. What do you think is like, what's going to separate the ones that have the staying power? And would you consider like these smart contract chains currencies as well? Are you grouping them into the same? You are, right? Okay. Yeah. So just curious what you think the staying power, which chain? You don't have to get specific about which chains, but what kind of technology has staying power?
Yeah, so it's a few things. The first is what makes any successful business successful, right? You have a strong management team, you have a lot of funding, you have different revenue streams, and then you have product market fit, right? You have a product that people are willing to buy or integrate into their companies. Most of the chains are trying to solve problems that don't exist.
Yeah.
So in the future, I think there are probably going to be 5 to 10 chains that rule all. I believe we'll see a multi-chain future. A chain like Ethereum has very different use cases than a chain like Solana does. I think L2s are going to be massive in the future.
Absolutely.
The value proposition of Ethereum is that it is the most secure blockchain. The problem, of course, is that it isn't scalable, so we need L2 solutions. Solana is super scalable, but it's also really centralized, right? Something like 20% of the tokens are held by the founding team and a few VCs. But it's scalable, and for microtransactions, it makes a ton of sense. And we're seeing a lot of metaverse platforms being built on Solana for that reason.
Right. Yeah. No, makes sense. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, kind of who survives. I'm throwing my hat in for Solana though. Shout out Solana. I love ETH too, though, man. ETH is great. I started trading on ETH and then moved to Solana around December. So I think a good chunk of my experience was on Ethereum. I messed around with the Bored Apes as well. Love those guys. When did you get your Bored Ape? We got into this really insightful conversation. I super appreciate it, man. I think our viewers are going to love hearing what you have to say. But I was like, it was kind of wanting to interview you and get a little bit more of your background. I have some notes as well, but we can kick it back. So when did you get into the Bored Apes? I see you have your Bored Ape as the PFP you're rocking. Were you pretty early? Did you mint or?
No, so I got my ape in November of 21. So it was about 33 ETH. ETH was at an all-time high back then. So in terms of USD value, I'm about break even on the ape right now. But I was in NFTs. Yeah, not bad. I was in NFTs long before that. I think again, like I'm not a day trader. I don't flip NFTs.
No trader. Okay.
I have never sold an NFT before. I'm proud of that stat.
No way. Never, like zero.
Never.
Let's go. That's cool.
I do a lot of due diligence before I enter into a project, which is why I usually get in later than most people. But I plan to hold all of these for 5+ years.
Incredible. Nice. Okay. And so if you don't mind, what are you holding? I mean, obviously your DD I think is more thorough than most. So curious what's in your bag.
So my public wallet, I tend not to talk about my private wallet.
Sure, fair.
Public wallet, apes, So like all the Abe assets, mutants, kennels, other deeds.
Mhm.
I'm really big into doodles. I think they have some of the strongest value propositions in the space. Definitely one of the best teams out there.
Mhm.
Just bought my first clone today,
Oh, cool.
and then a bunch of different metaverse land.
Nice, dude. Nice. And I maybe I have to cut this. I don't know, but anything on Solana yet?
No,
Wait, no, I don't need to cut this. It's gonna come. It's coming later. If nothing now, then soon.
yeah, nothing on Solana, and I'm not against Solana by any means.
Good.
I don't have an edge when it comes to Solana.
Mhm.
And truthfully, I don't know what the future is going to be. I think it's going to exist. I don't know if NFTs on Solana are going to exist, at least not at the high valuations that they were once at.
Sure.
But I'm pretty bullish on some metaverse platforms being built on Solana. So like Star Atlas, for instance, is a big one.
Mhm.
It's being built on Unreal Engine. They're taking their time with it. They've been working on it for several years now. It probably won't be released for another couple of years.
Incredible. I actually am unfamiliar with that one. Going to do some research, not financial advice, but
Yeah, I think there's a lot of antagonism between Ethereum natives and Solana natives.
yeah,
Completely unnecessary.
it's dumb. Yeah, especially from a trading perspective. If there's money to be made on either chain, just you got to be fucking fluid.
There's money to be made, but more importantly, the technology of both chains makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
just for different reasons.
Mhm.
Truthfully, I would never trust, $1 million asset to the Solana blockchain only because it's so centralized.
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, like microtransactions can't happen on Ethereum. No one's going to be paying for a $20 skin when they have to pay $50 in gas. So
Yep.
that's all going to move to Polygon. There are different reasons to invest in every chain.
Agreed. Yeah. And obviously, with Magic Eden going cross chain, hopefully we will facilitate some of this cross chain love, though. And
Magic is great, by the way.
aren't they cool?
I
I'm
think
a little biased, but
so. OpenSea was valued at $13 billion. Let's say it shed 30 or 40% of that in the market downturn. Volumes are abysmal. Magic Eden's valued at 1.6 billion per their last raise.
Mhm.
The team at Magic Eden is so much better at the most important thing, which is community outreach. They are going about it in the exact right way, where they are reaching out to the most important people in the space. They're trying to accommodate everyone, and their consumer service is it's so good.
Again, a little biased, but I have to agree. I don't want to compare any to marketplace or any other marketplace specifically, but yeah, I do think that is what we do well. I've talked to a few ETH folks already. Ahead of this cross chain push, and they've echoed the same thing, right? It's something missing in other marketplaces, but Magic Eden seems to do it well. I have a theory it's because our hiring practices, like we're generally hiring from the community. Like again, I'm an NFT degen, as mentioned. I think a lot of us were actually in the ecosystem, in the space, in the communities, trading, and that's where most of my coworkers are from. We pulled them from this space, and so we're a little bit more plugged in to these communities, and I don't know, we're a bit more real.
That's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah.
I think OpenSea is approaching this from a Web 2 lens.
Exactly. Yep.
And in Web 2, you don't really need to treat your customers the same way you do in Web 3, especially on OpenSea. At its peak, saw something like 450,000 monthly active traders, but millions and millions of dollars of liquidity. If that much money is being moved around such a small number of people, then you need to cater to those people in order to scale your business. And that's just not something they did extremely well. What I will say is that I think the winners of marketplaces are going to be the aggregators. I think over time there is going to be a ton of segmentation between marketplaces. You're going to have Magic Eden, OpenSea, X2Y2, Looks Rare, Coinbase NFT, a bunch of other ones are coming out, and they've raised a good amount of money in funding. When you have that much segmentation and you have a bunch of different items from collections listed on different marketplaces, the aggregators, the ones that list all of them in one common platform, it's just the easiest UI and UX.
Correct.
And you already saw Genie and Gem get acquired by Uniswap, and I forget what the other one was.
Yeah. There's some. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Listen, man, we're a little over time. Actually, this conversation was so fucking insightful. I regret not doing a little bit more research. I generally tell people I don't do it because I like to keep conversations organic and flowing. It's honestly because I'm also kind of a little lazy, like whatever, right? But no, I regret not doing some more research. I didn't know you were a gigabrain.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, come on, bro. Like, no, it was very insightful. A lot of these I do. We talk more about like personal backgrounds and growth and stuff like that. But
no,
we got into the nitty gritty.
Personal background.
hey, I mean, I care. I think it's definitely an interesting story.
They just want to hear me pump their bags.
Dude, I mean, well, fuck. It makes sense, right? Because you know what you're talking about. So, no, I appreciate you coming on, man. We got to do another one of these again. We came up on time here pretty quickly, so I'd love to have you back, and maybe once we.
Anytime.
Once we go across chain, I'll give you a shout.
Cool. You have my email, man.
All right, brother. I appreciate it, man. Pleasure talking to you as well. Let me end this broadcast.